Selamat pagi. Selamat pagi. Mohon izin untuk cek sound di ruangan Kementerian. Apakah suara saya terdengar dengan jelas?
Jelas, Pak.
Jelas, Pak ya. Untuk
Ya.
gambar, Pak. Untuk gambar, Pak.
Gambar juga jelas banget.
Oke. Ya, makasih, Pak ya.
Ya.
Bila imun tubuh prima, badan tetap sehat. Tapi kalau terlalu lelah, imun tubuh dapat menurun. Stres, imun turun lagi. Nutrisi tidak terjaga, turun lagi. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dengan ramuan alami, akar manis, jahe emprit, daun jambu mete, meniran, dan sambiloto.
Herba Muno Plus. Minum Herba Muno Plus. Resep rahasia ampu jamu BRA Muriati Sudibyo. Herba Muno Plus. Bantu jaga.
Bila imun tubuh prima, badan tetap sehat. Tapi kalau terlalu lelah, imun tubuh dapat menurun. Stres, imun turun lagi. Nutrisi tidak terjaga, turun lagi. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dengan ramuan alami, akar manis, jahe emprit, daun jambu mete, meniran, dan sambiloto.
Herba Muno Plus. Minum Herba Muno Plus. Resep rahasia ampu jamu BRA Muriati Sudibyo. Herba Muno Plus. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dari Mustika Ratu.
Sekarang, buka tabungan cukup dengan selfie. Rekening langsung jadi dan bisa dipakai transaksi. Mudah tarik tunai tanpa kartu. Semakin happy, karena bisa bayar tagihan-tagihan rutin. Bayar zaman sekarang, cukup scan kris. Untuk mama tersayang, kirim surprise pakai di kado. Ada kartunya lagi. Satu aplikasi, download mobile banking BRI. Gak pakai nanti.
Lewat pengembangan energi baru terbarukan, Pertamina menjawab kebutuhan energi masyarakat dengan mengutamakan keberlanjutan dan kemandirian. Melalui program Desa Energi Berdikari di 10 desa di seluruh Indonesia yang juga menggerakkan perekonomian. Desa Energi Berdikari menciptakan lingkungan lestari dan menggerakkan ekonomi. Pertamina, energizing.
Ayahku hebat, selalu melindungi dan menjagaku. Kata ayah tidak boleh sakit agar selalu bersamaku. Ketika aku sakit, ayah juga merawatku agar cepat sembuh. Kata ayah, agar tidak kena virus, selalu menggunakan hand sanitizer dan mengingatkanku agar selalu menggunakan masker. Ayahku baik, selalu berbagi. Di kantornya punya masker banyak banget. Ayahku rajin bekerja agar bisa menolong banyak orang. Ayahku hebat.
Indofarma.
Investasi untuk pemula.
Pakai Ajaib, karena mudah, aman, dan tidak butuh modal besar.
Proses pembukaan akun cepat 100% online. Dilengkapi fitur canggih untuk bantu pemula investasi.
Investasi itu nggak butuh modal yang gede.
Hanya butuh keberanian.
Saatnya berani.
Saatnya berani, mulai investasi.
Bila imun tubuh prima, badan tetap sehat. Tapi kalau terlalu lelah, imun tubuh dapat menurun. Stres, imun turun lagi. Nutrisi tidak terjaga, turun lagi. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dengan ramuan alami, akar manis, jahe emprit, daun jambu mete, meniran, dan sambiloto.
Herba Muno Plus. Minum Herba Muno Plus. Resep rahasia empu jamu BRA Muriati Sudibyo. Herba Muno Plus. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima. Dari Mustika Ratu.
Ini adalah kisah seorang lelaki bertemu seorang gadis. Lelaki itu adalah Mas Firsa, seorang mahasiswa perantauan yang baru saja pindah ke Jakarta. Sang gadis adalah Medi. Nama saya Bu Untung. Saya berniat menjodohkan mereka berdua nih, karena saya ingin sekali melihat mereka bersama.
Roda kehidupan terus berputar. Perubahan perilaku dengan segala kondisi membuat banyak orang semakin pintar. Kecepatan dan kemudahan adalah kunci dalam menjawab kebutuhan pasar. Dulu, untuk memiliki perlindungan harus banyak perhitungan. Mulai waktu yang terbuang karena prosesnya yang nggak gampang, bahkan sampai harus bertemu banyak orang di lapangan. Jangan menjadi penonton dengan aksi yang monoton. Kini, saatnya Brins hadir dengan transformasi digital dalam menjawab kebutuhan pasar. Dukungan teknologi digital dan kemampuan SDM yang handal adalah komitmen sebagai solusi perlindungan yang berkualitas dengan pelayanan yang mampu menembus batas.
Bila imun tubuh prima, badan tetap sehat. Tapi kalau terlalu lelah, imun tubuh dapat menurun. Stres, imun turun lagi. Nutrisi tidak terjaga, turun lagi. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dengan ramuan alami, akar manis, jahe emprit, daun jambu mete, meniran, dan sambiloto.
Herba Muno Plus. Minum Herba Muno Plus. Resep rahasia empu jamu BRA Muriati Sudibyo. Herba Muno Plus. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima. Dari Mustika Ratu.
Selamat datang di dunia antar aja. Perkenalkan, saya Satria, yang akan menjaga barang kamu dengan sepenuh hati dan mengantarkan ke tempat tujuan tanpa hambatan. Mohon diperiksa kembali alamat pengiriman kamu. Apabila sering mengirimkan ke alamat yang sama, bisa disimpan dan kami akan mengingatnya. dan memberi kabar tentang keberadaan barang kamu setiap saat. Ini semua dilakukan karena kami ingin memberikan kebahagiaan untuk kamu. Jadi mulai sekarang, untuk pengiriman apapun, tinggal diantar aja. Pasti bawa happy.
Sekarang buka tabungan cukup dengan selfie. Rekening langsung jadi dan bisa dipakai transaksi. Mudah tarik tunai tanpa kartu. Semakin happy karena bisa bayar tagihan-tagihan rutin. Bayar zaman sekarang cukup scan kris. Untuk mama tersayang, kirim surprise pakai di kado. Ada kartunya lagi.
Satu aplikasi, download mobile banking BRI. Gak pakai nanti.
Investasi untuk pemula.
Pakai ajaib, karena mudah, aman, dan tidak butuh modal besar.
Proses pembukaan akun cepat 100% online. Dilengkapi fitur canggih untuk bantu pemula investasi.
Investasi itu nggak butuh modal yang gede.
Hanya butuh keberanian.
Saatnya berani.
Saatnya berani, mulai investasi.
Bila imun tubuh prima, badan tetap sehat. Tapi kalau terlalu lelah, imun tubuh dapat menurun. Stres, imun turun lagi. Nutrisi tidak terjaga, turun lagi. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima dengan ramuan alami, akar manis, jahe emprit, daun jambu mete, meniran, dan sambiloto.
Herba Muno Plus. Minum Herba Muno Plus. Resep rahasia ampu jamu BRA Muriati Sudibyo. Herba Muno Plus. Bantu jaga imun tubuh tetap prima. Dari Mustika Ratu.
Roda kehidupan terus berputar. Perubahan perilaku dengan segala kondisi membuat banyak orang semakin pintar. Kecepatan dan kemudahan adalah kunci dalam menjawab kebutuhan pasar. Dulu, untuk memiliki perlindungan harus banyak perhitungan. Mulai waktu yang terbuang karena prosesnya yang nggak gampang, bahkan sampai harus bertemu banyak orang di lapangan. Jangan menjadi penonton dengan aksi yang monoton. Kini, saatnya Brins hadir dengan transformasi digital dalam menjawab kebutuhan pasar. Dukungan teknologi digital dan kemampuan SDM yang handal adalah komitmen sebagai solusi perlindungan yang berkualitas dengan pelayanan yang mampu menembus batas.
Terus melindungi setulus hati.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Selamat pagi, salam sehat, dan selamat bergabung dalam acara Virtual Conference Investor Daily Summit 2021, forum investasi terbesar di Indonesia. Hari ini adalah hari kedua dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan Virtual Conference yang dilaksanakan selama 3 hari dari tanggal 13 sampai 15 Juli 2021, di mana akan banyak topik pembahasan yang berbeda di setiap sisanya. Acara ini diselenggarakan oleh Berita Satu Media Holdings bekerjasama dengan Herbamuno by Mustika Ratu, Citibank, PT Bank Mandiri Persero Tbk, BRI Insurance, dan Antraja. Pada kesempatan ini, perkenalkan saya Abdul Aziz sebagai host sekaligus sebagai moderator dalam sesi pagi hari ini. Sebelum kita mulai acara ini, kami meminta para peserta untuk bersama-sama menyanyikan lagu kebangsaan kita, Indonesia Raya. Kepada para peserta, kami mohon berdiri.
Indonesia tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu ibuku. Indonesia kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita berseru, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah badannya untuk Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya.
Baik, terima kasih. Dipersilakan duduk kembali. Untuk memulai acara pagi hari ini, pertama-tama kita akan mendengarkan sambutan yang akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, Menko Kemaritiman dan Investasi. Silakan, Bapak Luhut.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi buat kita semua. Semoga kita selalu sehat-sehat dimanapun kita berada. Dalam kesempatan ini, saya ingin mengucapkan selamat ulang tahun kepada Harian Investor Daily. Tahun ini adalah kita masuki ke tahun kedua untuk menghadapi COVID-19. Munculnya varian Delta di Indonesia menyebabkan pengembangan kasus positif meningkat dalam 1 bulan yang luar biasa. Dan ini juga saya kira dihadapi banyak negara di dunia. Untuk itu pemerintah memutuskan untuk memberlakukan PPKM darurat di sejumlah daerah untuk menekan transmisi COVID-19 mengingat varian tersebut lebih mudah menginfeksi manusia. Selain itu, pemerintah juga mendorong perbaikan fasilitas untuk menunjang kebutuhan penanganan pandemi seperti ketersediaan tempat tidur, pasokan oksigen, ketersediaan obat-obatan, bantuan sosial, hingga percepatan vaksinasi agar herd immunity dapat tercapai dengan segera. Saya ingin juga menyampaikan pada kesempatan ini masalah obat-obatan. Obat-obatan ini memang ada masalah Tapi di awal-awal, tapi sekarang saya pikir obat-obatan mulai kita kendalikan. Justru nanti pada tanggal 15 kita akan launching paket obat sebanyak 300.000 untuk orang-orang yang kena infeksi, jadi kasus ringan, tentu dengan arahan dokter. Jadi kasus aktif itu ada 210.000 dan kita siapkan sekarang ada 300.000 paket obat yang akan kita bagikan setiap minggu kepada kasus-kasus aktif itu yang macamnya ada 3 paket. Ini salah satu untuk mengatasi itu. Kedua, memang tantangan mengenai oksigen. Oksigen juga kita tata dengan baik, sehingga kita harap mulai minggu ini, tanggal 15 ini, mungkin oksigen itu akan bertahap makin baik suplainya. Di samping itu, sudah mulai berdatangan, misalnya dari Tiongkok, kita dapat oksigen generator, ada 1.500 yang 5 liter dan 10 liter, dan juga dari Singapura.
Sizes, and also we procured from Singapore close to 10,000 products. And overall, we will have 40,000 oxygen supplies, and we will use that to assist the public with minor COVID-19 symptoms. And our foundation, the government-owned foundation, will assist regarding the disbursement of the supply. And also, we have increased the number of beds in our hospitals to keep up with the number of infections. We have mobilized all of our resources. We set up emergency medical tents, and we also closely coordinate with the military personnel so that they could assist with the public who have minor symptoms and severe symptoms as well. Now, this is a rapid activity. We involve also religious leaders and places of worship. Apart from that, we also mobilize the human resources personnel. We have 250 new doctors, graduate doctors, that will be deployed on the ground. And here, hopefully, the infection rate could flatten. But please remember that we have to apply strict discipline. And I believe together we could overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. And afterwards, we could talk about economy. Because I'm aware that the government provide social assistance, logistical in terms of medicine and vaccination. We dispersed vaccine to various places all over Indonesia. We have realized that if the COVID-19 is under control, then investments will start pouring into Indonesia again. So here, we need to increase the trust, the level of trust from the public. And we realize that many investors apply wait and see policy, but I'm certain that they are still have a high level of confidence in Indonesia because we have a lot of strategic industries here, and they are still keen to invest here. I also would like to convey that health protocol is of the utmost urgency. So I encourage you once again to apply strict discipline. And in this new normal, we also realize that it could take a while before we and the world could overcome this pandemic. But it all comes down to us. We have to remain diligent and strict regarding health protocol. And I also would like to clarify several issues concerning economy, investment in Indonesia, and the government is doing its utmost effort to do this. Even though the COVID-19 has impacted Indonesia economy and the world over significantly. That's why we are working together with all components, the health sector, trade, and other sectors. And the aim is to recover from the pandemic. And actually, the infection rate here is 6%, and it's relatively moderate. But still, we should not let our guard down. And we also see that the economic growth that we are experiencing is increasing compared to previous time. So in the month of June, we see a high rate of infection due to the Delta variant, but we are doing everything we can to manage it. And we also notice that there is an increase of 28% increase of the foreign capital pouring into Indonesia. And this is a good sign. And apart from that, the government also have strategic efforts like in Morotai area, Wedape industrial complex, focusing on mineral resources. And I believe they will pose significant impact towards our economy. And we also have various finance incentive like tax holiday and other instrument. And then for non-fiscal incentive, the government prepared other resources such as the power supply, telecommunication supply, and others. So we have a policy one-stop service. And here, Indonesia is ready to welcome investors domestically and internationally. All this time, we realize that there are many investors who are reluctant to invest in Indonesia due to the bureaucracy and other things. And here, we are doing everything we can to solve this issue. And Omnibus Law also work together with us to change 1,250 regulations here in Indonesia. And the spirit here is to simplify the bureaucracy and the regulation so that all sectors, the high risk and the low risk sector, could contribute towards our economy. This remains as our attention. And we're also aware that there are a lot of requirements, such as the outsourcing and also regulation for small, medium enterprises, and then regarding patent, immigration issues, research and development, and also other permits, licenses to obtain land, and other issues relevant to this. We are working very hard to simplify this. And then we also have economic zone, where we provide one-stop service and other supporting facilities. And when we simplify the bureaucracy, we are optimistic that it could improve the investment climate in Indonesia and could attract more investors. And here, Investor Daily, that focuses on investment, could work together with the government so that it could convey positive messages to the world, especially our investors. For example, you could convey correct information and positive spirit. And once again, happy anniversary, the 20th anniversary to Investor Daily. And I'm certain that in your 20th anniversary, you are fully matured and you could give balanced and accurate information to the public. So all the best to Investor Daily. All the success to you. So happy 20th anniversary and bravo to Investor Daily. That is all from my side. Thank you. God's blessings be upon us all. Thank you to Bapak Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, the Coordinating Minister for Maritime and Investment Affairs. Next, we will hear remarks from Bapak Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita, Minister of Industry. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Agus Gumiwang, Minister of Industry. I hope that you're doing well this morning. Good morning, and I hope that everyone is healthy. I'm sure that the participants are quite familiar with Mr. Agus Gumiwang. He is one of the most instrumental person in the milestones of Indonesian automotive industry, especially in the development of environmentally friendly or sustainable automotive industry. The floor is yours, Mr. Agus Gumiwang. Thank you. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope that we are all doing well. To the leader, the Chief of Investors Daily, and this distinguished audience of this Zoom webinar. First of all, I would like to wish Investor Daily a happy anniversary on its 20th anniversary. Part of Berita Satu Media Holdings. From the Ministry of Industry, we extend our wish that the Investor Daily will continue to provide trustworthy, current news on the stock market, investment, and the economy to its readers, especially those investors or candidate investors, and also to businesses and associations or professional associations. Investor Daily Summit 2021 today is expected to be a forum for the government, the regional government, foreign and domestic investors, as well as associations and businesses to discuss various issues to improve the investment climate in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the industrial sector is still the biggest contributor to the national GDP, with a contribution of 17.89%, an increase compared to 2019 figures in 2019 of 17.58%. In addition, industry export in 2020 has also shown a good surplus of $14.17 billion, and investment realization in the same period is 272.9 trillion. Today, I am asked by Investor Daily to talk about issues relating to development of automotive industry that is sustainable or environmentally friendly. Ladies and gentlemen, there are now 21 industry companies that produces vehicles in Indonesia, with investment value of approximately 71.35 trillion, with a production capacity of 2.35 million units per year, with over 1.5 million employees working through the value chain of the industry. Based on data from IHS Market Indonesia, the PMI value or purchasing Manufacturing Index Indonesia has shown an increase in the past 3 months in March, April, and May. In March, it's at 553, increasing to May at 55.3, and in these 3 consecutive months, there has been some record-breaking numbers in Indonesian industrial history. In June, our PMI has shown a bit of decrease due to the emergency PPKM or restrictions. In June, we see the numbers stood at 55.3, but we believe that the business will continue to strengthen based on this PMI. In the past 8 months, industry has continued to strengthen. In the past 8 months, the PMI of Indonesian manufacturers continues to increase, so that it indicates some optimism in Indonesian automotive industry. Export of automotive products, particularly vehicles, 4-wheel vehicles, from January 2021, shown almost 30 trillions, with 18 trillion are CBUs from Indonesia to over 80 countries in the world. Production of four-wheel vehicles from January to May 2021 showed more than 400,000 units. And to improve production of motor vehicles in Indonesia, the government had loosened luxury goods taxes, and this has been extended until December 31st, 2021 for four-wheel vehicles with capacity up to 2,500 cc's. This is based on local purchase of 60%. And based on our evaluation, this loosening of luxury taxes has increased sales of motor vehicles that to which this policy is applied or implemented. Total sales until June 2021 has reached 160,000 units, and this obviously shows positive impact on the growth of automotive industry in Indonesia, with multiplier effect that is quite extended to other industrial sectors, so that in turn, it might jumpstart our economy, our national economy. Ladies and gentlemen, demand for electric vehicle on the global scale is estimated to be increasing to at least 55 million electric vehicles by 2040. This growth leads to growth of lithium-ion battery, and it is estimated that by 2030, there will be a capacity of over 500 GWh for EV battery. And this is sourced from Bloomberg. And the increased use of batteries will lead to increase in supporting industry for nickel, cobalt, lithium, and manganese. And so that owner of these resources will play a very crucial role in the ecosystem of development of electric vehicles. In terms of sales of in automotive production in Indonesia leads in Asia, and it is projected that it will continue to grow by 2 million production by 2025. This is an opportunity to develop electric vehicles in the country. Through this program, batteries will become the most valuable components of electrical vehicles, comprising 35% of production cost or manufacturing cost. The advantage of manufacturing of EV in Indonesia is that batteries, lithium ion battery and nickel is supported by Indonesian capacity to supply resources that are necessary for this production due to its having the biggest nickel production in Indonesia. There are 9 companies that support battery industry, 5 that produce pure nickel, pure cobalt, ferronickel, and hybrid mineral, as well as 4 companies that produce or manufacture batteries. So Indonesia is capable to support supply of batteries for electric vehicles from refinery and manufacturing of EV and up to the recycling of EV. The government supports transportation industry through planning of development with the vision to become the key player in global automotive industry. Transportation industry is one of the priorities in this RIPIN, key industrial planning or the blueprint for Indonesian industrial development until to 2030. The roadmap for EV is based on Minister of Industry regulation number 2020 on specification, on technical specification of roadmap EV and local content. We have set the target of developing main component of EV, battery, motor vehicles, motor engines, and other supporting components. Indonesia has created an environment of electric vehicles by involving various stakeholders from production, including battery production, consumers, and infrastructures, including charging stations and pilot projects, to accelerate development of electric vehicles ecosystem. The government had set a roadmap until 2030 with the target of production of electric vehicle of at least 600,000 units by 2030. That's for the 4-wheel vehicles, and for 2-wheel vehicles, 2.5 million units. With the production of electric vehicles, it is hoped that emission of carbon dioxide will be reduced by 2.7 million tons for 4-wheeled vehicles and 1.1 million tons for two-wheel vehicles. In conjunction to this, to accelerate popularization of EV, we are going to set roadmap for sales of EV in government institutions in a roadmap that is set for 2030. It is estimated that purchase of EV will increase to 132,000, and for two-wheel vehicles, 398,530 units. And to promote industrialization of electric vehicles, the government has provided various fiscal incentives and non-fiscal incentives for consumers of electric vehicles, including luxury taxes of 0%. So there is no luxury tax for vehicles based on the 2021 ministerial regulation, and taxes for handing over of electric vehicles in Jakarta province based on governor regulation, and cost for handing over of EV of 2.5% taxes. And this has been implemented in West Java. Minimum down payment of 0% and low interest for purchase of electric vehicles that is set by the central bank. Discount for electric installation as well as other incentives. EV industry can also make use of other incentives or other advantages, including tax holidays, mini tax holidays, based on law number 25/2007, and also tax allowance based on government regulation number 18/2015, which has been renewed with law number 19/2017, as well as Minister of Industry regulation number 1/2018, and no import taxes. The government will also pay for import taxes for research and development. To accelerate popularization of EV, the government will support the purchasing of EV by government institution. In a meeting with the principal industry in Japan in 2021, we have agreed on several agreements with various industry until 2024. 5.2 trillion until 2024. Suzuki Motor Corporation, 1.2 trillion, and Mitsubishi Motor Corporation until 2024. And this shows that with investment commitment from principal automotive industry, this indicates that Indonesia is still the country of investment destination for many of this industry. They also indicated their commitment to continue development of EV in Indonesia.
Before I close, I would like to convey as mentioned by the Coordinating Minister for Maritime and Investment Affairs, our current focus is to control the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Because if we could do this faster, then of course, Indonesia economic recovery would improve faster, better, and as I mentioned earlier, that the growth of the industry, whether it is manufacturing industry or other industry, shows a very significant and positive increase. We see this from various indicators like PMI and also the level of exports, the number of investments that coming into Indonesia. And we, in facing this second spike of COVID-19 pandemic, we have released several regulations. For example, law number 21 of year 2021, which make it compulsory for all manufacturing industries to prioritize the national goal in managing the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. And the good news that I could convey in this Investor Daily Forum, the response from that minister regulation was very positive by our industrial sectors. I know for a fact that they have started many efforts. For example, gas manufacturing industry, they have switched 100% of their capacity for medical purposes. And they prioritize on their client and buyers at the medical sector to help the government increase the supply of oxygen for the public. And also to increase the supply of oxygen where the increased demand is exponentially with the increased cases of infection, we have also requested other industries apart from the oxygen manufacturers, if they have byproducts or other means to produce oxygen, and here usually the petrochemical sector, I urge them to assist the medical and health sector as well. And we receive significant response, and they have done so. So in short, I would like to give the utmost appreciation to all industry for working together with the government so that we could manage COVID-19 pandemic well. So we need to work together hand in hand, whether to provide oxygen, everything related with that, the tanks, the components, because it is of the utmost need of the people here. So again, I would like to give my appreciation to Investor Daily for organizing this important forum. I'm certain that this forum could give a significant contribution in the increase of number of investment in Indonesia. So happy 20th anniversary. That is all from my side. Thank you so much. God's blessings be upon us all. Thank you, Bapak Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita, Minister of Industry. Before we continue, we will have a photo session between our ministers and members of the panel. Please turn on your camera. Thank you so much. Next, we will start our panel discussion with the topic of developing an environmentally friendly automotive industry. And here we have outstanding speakers. First, we have Mr. Lee Kang-hyung, COO of Hyundai Motor Asia Pacific. And then we also have Bapak Muldoko, the chairman of EV Industry Association.
Yeah, Mr. Lee has been contributing to automotive industry in Indonesia for 20 years. We call him on the field as Pak Haji. And I think we have a lot of Korean drama fans around in our audience. I think a lot of them will ask for your autograph. Mr. Lee, Hyundai Asia Pacific has only been in Indonesia for a short time. Yes, that's true. We want to know why Hyundai decided to open a company in Indonesia and how Hyundai see the potentials of automotive sustainable vehicles in Indonesia, especially electric vehicles. The floor is yours, Mr. Lee. Thank you. Thank you so much. The Hyundai Motor Asia Pacific, we have an office in Malaysia, but lately our headquarters decided that the capacity of automotive industry in Indonesia has continued to increase. And there is even a development of electric vehicles, so that the headquarters decided to move the office to Indonesia. Oh, my presentation will start now, or do I have to make some sort of greeting first? Oh, you can continue. Yes, you can continue. All right. So let me share my slides here. All right. Today, I'd like to talk about battery electric vehicle industry in Indonesia. I've talked about Asia. Hyundai Asia Pacific had moved its headquarters to Indonesia and its activities in Indonesia. I'm going to talk about that in details. In 2018, President Jokowi went to South Korea and talked with Hyundai, and Hyundai Motor had decided to invest in Indonesia. And we had signed an MOU that in 2020, Hyundai had started to build a plant in Cikarang with an investment of $1.5 billion. Can produce up to 250,000 units annually. And the plant is 77 hectare in area. In building the Hyundai plant in Cikarang, in 1.5 years, we have finished or completed the installation of machineries. And this year, in May, we have started pilot production, and by the end of this year, we are going to release one model of ICE, and next year we have plans to issue 2 models ICE and 1 electric vehicle in March. In March, we will we'll launch this model. We see that, first of all, global EV market, we will see how global EV market is going to develop. In 2020, there is only about a market of 2 million units with a growth of only 3%. But maybe this, and but maybe in 2030, sales of EV will increase to 30 million units with a growth of 30%. By promoting use of EV, we want to help protect the environment and reduce carbon dioxide emission in accordance with government policies. So the market for EV will continue to grow, of course. In 2020, there is a 3% market, but it will continue to increase. By 2035, maybe there will be a market of about 40%. And this market is dominated by China, Europe, and the America. And that's the current condition for now. Price of EV depends on battery. Battery contributes about 40% of the price of electric vehicle. The battery is very important in EV, so it all depends on the price. The price is currently around $150 per kilowatt hour. This might drop by 2024 to $100. So about a third, the price will drop by a third. The initial price is over $1,000, but it continues to drop, so that hopefully by 2024, 2025, it will come to under $100. All the sizes are now dominated by the America, Europe, and Korea, but by 2030, maybe other players, Japan and Korea and China, will enter the market. But after 2035, as Pa Agus had said earlier, our Minister of Industry had spoke at detailed, with Indonesian nickel in the biggest reservoir of nickel in Indonesia, the battery industry will be dominated by Indonesia, at least in the supplier side. So the government will develop this by inviting foreign investors to invest in this mineral industry, in the battery industry. And this ecosystem will have the potentials to grow in Indonesia. So after 2035, Indonesia might become one of the major players in battery industry in Indonesia. The battery capacity in China is big, but it will continue to drop, while Indonesian capacity will increase. In Indonesia, the size of EV industry, we are optimistic about it, but it will depend on the policies from the government. In other countries, if the government is supportive in promoting EV, the government issues subsidies. But in Indonesia, with the current Indonesian economic condition, there is no such subsidy. So there needs to be other policies to promote the market size or to increase the market size. Honestly, this year we see sales of EV only about 1,000 to 2,000 units, and charging units under 200. And in this condition,
when we see the market size, it is becoming larger. And by year 2025, we could see a demand of 40,000 vehicles. And by year 2030, we could have more than 300,000 vehicles. And the Minister of Industry mentioned that with various policies from the government to attract investors, especially EV producers, we see there is an increasing potential. But again, it highly depends on the policy released by the government and also the price of EV itself. And here, we know that there is a particular policy regarding PP or Government Regulation 74. This is the newly released government regulation. And here it stipulates about tax allowance specifically for EV. So if the CO2 is 0%, then it will give 0% tax. And then for hybrid vehicle and mild hybrid vehicle, in line with the CO2 emission, there is 6% at the first stage, as you see at the table, and this affects the price of EV. And this could gradually decrease the price of EV compared to ICE vehicle. And then for the second stage, if the ecosystem is above EV ecosystem investment is more than 5 trillion, when they engage in commercial production or the real investment after 2 years, we could receive the tax allowance. For example, for the PHEV, hybrid, mild hybrid, so that Indonesian consumer would prefer to have EV compared to non-EV vehicle. So again, it depends on the policies released by the government. And last week, they released this government regulation, and hopefully this could attract more investors to Indonesia. And here, judging from the proposal of EV support policy, Pak Agus, the Minister of Industry, mentioned regarding PKB, the BBNKB apply in Jakarta only for the time being, but we want this to be applied nationwide. And then, concerning the market size, the consumer itself cannot do this. So that's why we need assistance from the government. So if we expect the public to buy the EV, they need guidance from the government. And we would know about the market size and how this could look in the future. They could predict the sales. So that's why I'm hoping that the government could also procure a large number of EV to start the first step. They could allocate budget for this so that they could start investing in EV. And with this step, then hopefully the public could be introduced and they are willing to purchase EV. I'm aware that we need to increase the number of charging points, and hopefully the power supply, the PLN, could increase the number of charging points. And here we humbly ask the government to install more charging points. And if the government build new buildings, new facilities, please equip them with charging points so that with the new regulation and the new infrastructure, then we could have more charging points or the charging facilities. And then to increase the usage of EV, we also need to establish the production point of EV in line with the government regulation, but it is closely linked with TKDN so that the EV production align with the items stipulated in the TKDN. And in this graph, we see this year the TKDN target is 35%, next year 40%, and gradually by year 2030, 80%. I mentioned earlier that the cost of the battery amount to 30 to 40% of the overall price of the EV. And that's why we need to consider about the price of battery. And Korea, China, they approach the industry and they wish to set up a battery factory in Indonesia. And with this, I believe that the price of the battery could be reduced significantly in line with the TKDN. But if by recent years, if this battery factory is not established yet, then this could also influence the price of EV. So here, I know that the investors need to invest a large number of resources, not just capital. So that's why we need to work together with the government so they could calculate all items from the assembly point, the resource raw material, so that they could calculate the value of investment before they proceed further, so that they are confident that they could produce EV in Indonesia in recent years. And we could meet the TKDN target, and eventually the EV industry could flourish in Indonesia. Now, I conveyed this simple concept and the current condition of EV sector in Indonesia. And hopefully, similar industries together with the government could collaborate together in producing EV. And I'm certain that in relatively short time, Indonesia could become one of the major players that could produce EV and export EV to ASEAN countries and all over the world. That is all from my side. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Lee. If I may conclude that the key is with the incentive from the government. Yes, you could say that. Because it comes down to the price of EV. So from the consumer side, if there is a huge gap between the price of EV and ICE, then consumer will be reluctant to choose EV. Yes, very interesting, Mr. Lee. And now we will move to the next panelist. Here, we have Pak Muldoko, the chairman of the Association of Electric Vehicle Industry in Indonesia. Hope you are healthy, Pak Muldoko. It is truly an honor to have you with us. We know that you have a very busy schedule at the presidential office, but you still allocate time in this important association. And now, I humbly invite you to convey your thoughts. Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. God's blessings be upon us all. Om Swastiastu, Shalom. Ladies and gentlemen, the President has signed government presidential regulation number 15 regarding the acceleration of electric vehicle industry, or we know this with KLBB. And with this presidential regulation, we want EV to become solution to reduce the consumption of fossil fuel and to make Indonesia as one of the bases for EV production. To follow up this presidential regulation, all technical institutions have drafted the policy to operate this presidential regulation. However, they are still waiting regarding this fiscal incentive. We realize this is one of the key to increase the investment rate of KLBB or EV industry in Indonesia. As mentioned earlier by previous speaker, there are several questions that we have in our mind regarding KLBB industry. First, why Indonesia need to develop electric vehicle? At least there are three arguments why we see electric vehicle as an urgent need. First, from the environmental side, because Indonesia have a strong commitment to fulfill its target in Paris Agreement. We want to reduce 29% of our CO2 emission by year 2030. So the electric vehicle segment or sector plays an important part. And second, regarding the efficiency of energy sector. And you know that we have imported a large number fossil fuel, 600,000 barrels every day. And the consumption of fossil fuel is increasing in line with the increasing purchasing power of the public. So that is why the fossil fuel import is increasing as well. And here, from the electricity consumption in Indonesia, we have 35,000 megawatt project, and if the EV sector could start soon, then we need to use our electricity reserve, and this is a good thing. And then to increase the national industry capacity, we could enhance our industrial skill, and it could make Indonesia as one of the bases of EV exports. And we see that we still have a lot of potential in terms of resources, technology, and this could be a starting point for Indonesia. And then another critical question would be, can Indonesia have its own brand of electric vehicle produced by our resources? I'm optimistic about this. We could independently produce electronic vehicle. Yes, we are capable in producing conventional vehicle, but we are also capable of producing EV. And as mentioned earlier, that we have the largest nickel reserve in the world. And this is important to create lithium battery needed for electric vehicles. And if we support this with fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, and also other schemes, for example, a robust research and development supported by universities, then I'm certain that Indonesia could produce its high-quality electric vehicle. And then next critical question, what sort of regulations that are needed so that electric vehicle could become the main vehicle in Indonesia? Now, here we understand that we need fiscal and non-fiscal incentives from the government. It is necessary because the current production cost is still high compared to conventional vehicle. That's why it is difficult to compete in the market. But when we provide incentive, we must consider this carefully. One of the issues is TKDN. And to accelerate the transition between using conventional vehicle to EV, we urge other ministries like the Ministry of Industry to also release supporting regulation. And on the screen, you see there are various regulations, and it is important to convince investors and potential investors to invest in KLBB industry in Indonesia. Apart from that, to increase the commitment from the government side on this sector, then we need support from all sectors, not just the government. Yes, the government need to set up the initial market for the government institution to purchase this EV. Even though it already started, I know this, that the Ministry of Transport already purchased a large number of electric vehicles, but I expect other government institution could start this as their pilot project. And next, we realize that we need a binding regulation equipped with its consequences, reward and punishment at the government level as well. And here, we encourage that the central government and regional government to allocate their budget to support the KBLBB, including the public transportation system, because it is important. And I know that the Ministry of Transportation already have a roadmap how we could have a smooth transition from conventional vehicle to electric vehicle. And then regarding supporting infrastructure, the government have this in ENSDM regulation. However, investment in the infrastructure sector should be made widely for other players so that this sector could develop significantly and support the ecosystem of KLBB. And as closing from my side, the ecosystem is not yet firmly established. We realize that there are still other components being imported, including batteries. For example, the current electric vehicle that we started, 59% of its components are still imported. And if there is no aggressive and competent R&D and there is no incentive, then Indonesia will only become a target market. And especially during the global trend of EV, and we don't want this to happen. So we have to work hard. And I'm aware that with the main resources of nickel in Indonesia, then we must utilize all other resources that we have, including human resources, so we could focus on R&D to support this ecosystem so that it could flourish further. Apart from that, we also need funding support from the industrial sector. And I, as one of the presidential staff, I have invited the leaders from Himbara, or the National Bank, apologies, including the multi-finance sectors. We met and had an intense discussion, and we agreed that we need to have a movement, a collaboration to fully implement the presidential regulation number 55. So during our meeting, the Association of State-Owned Banks gave positive response. Here, the Association of Electric Vehicle support the government regulation, and we are committed to socialize this to the public and all relevant stakeholders, including potential sponsors. Now, during our meeting, we talked about the post-sales services regarding the buyback and then infrastructure and the readiness level of SKBU and also other issues from the banking sector. We will definitely socialize these issues to the public. And another issue we talked about is about the endurance level. So here, the lifespan of the electric vehicle itself is also important. Now, here, Indonesia is eager to prove that our domestic resources could make it happen, could produce EV that is good quality. We don't want to be just another market, but we must emerge as one of the powerhouse for electric vehicle at the global stage. And I've proven this. I could produce EV produced by Indonesian children, and we produce a large number of EV here. Yes, thank you, Pak Muldoko. It's very interesting that Indonesia could have the national electric car. I remember back in 1996 or 1997, at that time, we had Timor national car, but unfortunately it died down before it flourished. Yes, I remember that. But we don't want that to happen in this industry as well. We want to avoid that. Yes, it's very interesting, sir. We will continue later on.
The next panelist is Johannes Nangoy, Chairman of Gaikindo, or Association of Indonesia Automotive Industries. And he is known as the diversity of the industry. He said that we don't recognize brand or country of origin or groups. There is only one Gaikindo with the vision and mission to develop automotive industry in Indonesia. Is that so, Mr. Nangoy? Yes, that's true. Mr. Johannes will present the industrial map of sustainable automotive industry in Indonesia. You have 10 minutes, sir. The floor is yours. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm just going to talk about developing sustainable automotive industry with the focus on EV. It's true that EV is one of the sustainable type of vehicles, but there are also other points that we're going to discuss now. In automotive industry, Indonesia has once reached a maximum sales of 1.2 million vehicles in a year. So Indonesia had entered a new club where domestic sales of car exceeds 1 million units, one of the only 16 or 17 countries in the world. In Indonesia, the number of car ownership is 99 car per 1,000 people. So this is quite a low number. We have a huge potential to grow. In Thailand, there are 275 cars per 1,000 people. Malaysia, 490 cars per 1,000 people. And with 270 million population in Indonesia, by adding 1 car per 1,000, we'll require 270,000 cars. So if we increase it to 100 car per 1,000, we need to sell 270,000 cars. And to reach that number, we need to sell 27 million cars in total. And this is quite a significant number. Based on Ministry of Industry presentation, it shows that Indonesia GDP is about 4,000. If our GDP per capita reach $5,000 per capita, Indonesian total sale of car will not be stopped anymore. It will continue to increase and it will reach a very high number. Indonesia is the biggest number in ASEAN and it will continue to grow in the future, and it has a huge potentials, not only among Asian countries, but other countries will also see Indonesia as a very potential market. Automotive industry has 1.5 million workers, not including people from financing company that supports this industry. Financing company and also car insurance. We don't count this among the 1.5 million. So this is quite an important industry, and we contribute to 4.24% to the GDP, and our export CBU had reached 330 cars in 2019, or 4.5%. We also see that the past, current, and future of the industry will continue to develop. If you see that in the previous years, Indonesia used combustion engines with Euro 0 or very poor emission. We use manual transmission cars, but with the development of technology, gradually we are moving towards using better technology. We now Euro 4 gasoline cars, and for diesel engine car, by 2022, the standard will be Euro 4 as well. And this will make our industry more competitive globally. And this is the trend that we are following. One of our targets is zero emission vehicle, in which EV will play a more important role in the future. This is all triggered by Paris Agreement. When Indonesia will drop carbon emission with the support of other countries to 40%. One of the contributors to emission is automotive industry. And therefore, we will continue to strive to reduce this emission. In Europe, they have used Euro 6 cars. And in ASEAN, Singapore had used Euro 5, Thailand Euro 4, India had already used Euro 4. Indonesia is still a bit behind. For example, with solar or diesel engine car, we still use Euro 2 in Indonesia. And we are going to strive to get to Euro 4. Conventional fuel like gasoline will gradually be substituted with batteries or hydrogen. I would like to explain about the next electrified vehicles. There is hybrid, there is plug-in hybrid, there is battery electric vehicles, and then there is also flexi engine or biofuel. This is something that we should not forget. Don't forget, Indonesia is a big country with a huge amount of produce like palm oil. And using biofuel from oil palm, we can have more sustainable fuel without needing any additional infrastructure for fueling. Indonesia has quite a mature industry or manufacturing industry, as Pak Minister of Industry had explained. Electric vehicles has the full support of Indonesian government. And we have development of nickel-based battery in Indonesia. Presidential regulation is in full support of that. But what we need to look into on the map of potential market in Indonesia, it is quite evident that vehicles with under 300 or 250 million rupiah has the biggest portion in the market, has the biggest market share. So like Agya, Ayla, Avanza, Xenia, and these types of cars, they have the biggest market share in Indonesia. They are priced under 250 million rupiah or under 300 million rupiah. And this continue to grow in Indonesia. So for EVs to develop Indonesia, we need to keep the price down to be under 250 or 300 million rupiah so that people can buy them. Out of the total sales of 2019, combustion engine, this is the figures of sales. By 2020, some hybrid and plug-in hybrid has continued to develop. And in 2029, you can see that their hybrids cars has been sold at 1,378 by mid-year. And this shows that the interest of the public is interested in buying these cars. Let's talk about alternative energy in Indonesia. Let's not forget about agriculture-based fuel like biodiesel and cars that are using multiple or very flexible fueling, use of biodiesel with minimal or no modification. So they can use ethanol or other kinds of fuel. As you can see here, for small vehicles, for short distances like motorcycles, small vehicles, small cars, or inner city buses like Transjakarta, the use of electric vehicles is highly advisable because they are of limited use. But for bigger vehicles, for longer distances, they will continue to use natural gas or biofuel or synthetic fuel, especially for big trucks or buses that, for example, from Medan to Bali, trucks for long distance haulage. So for these kinds of vehicles, maybe biofuel is the alternative. When I take part in a convention in Germany had put forth a solution that says that there is no one solution. There should be several alternatives to solve the issue of emission of motor vehicles. For example, in Indonesia, electric vehicles can be used for short distances, biofuel for medium distance, and for big vehicles such as muffler truck, trucks, mining trucks, military trucks, highly modified military trucks, they can still use biodiesel. Indonesia in 2020, Pertamina has produced D100 or diesel 100 that uses palm oil, and we will continue to refine this technology. We can continue to develop this technology. And by implementing B20 and B30, we can save our foreign exchange reserves by 26 trillion rupiah. And by applying B30, we can further save our foreign exchange reviews. By using battery-based vehicle, we can provide some alternative, but other alternatives are vehicles with biofuel for more difficult terrains. For example, Poland had launched that public vehicles are fueled by hydrogen. So hydrogen is also one of the alternatives for fueling vehicles. It's true that Indonesia has a very massive potentials to produce a battery for EV, and we need to focus on that so that we can produce EVs in Indonesia. Basically, Gaikindo continues to encourage our members and with collaboration with the government to make Indonesia as one of the bases of EV combustion engine manufacturing, EV or hydrogen-based vehicles, so that we can fulfill domestic needs and be a basis for export of vehicles. Thank you, Mr. Johannes. One thing, so basically BEV, ICE, and hybrid as well, plug-in hybrid can be manufactured together at the same time. So let's say a person can use only their vehicle to go to work or to go to school. EV is suitable for them. But if they travel, for example, to Bali or to other islands, I think we need more time to create electric vehicles that can handle that kind of distance. Remember that military vehicles that had go to the forest and others, I think they need technologies for multiple fuels to operate. And this cannot be fulfilled immediately. So we need to provide alternatives. And Indonesia will continue to support these kinds of alternatives.
Now we will move to the next speaker, Mr. Toto Nugroho, Managing Director of Indonesia Battery Industry. And here, Pak Toto is lucky that you are leading this new industry, because there's a saying that when you start from scratch, it is easier compared to continue what is already there. So Pak Toto will convey thoughts regarding the current development in battery industry in Indonesia, and also to convey about the environmental friendly electric vehicle. Thank you so much, Pak Aziz. God's blessings be upon us all. Thank you for inviting me in the Investor Daily Summit 2021. This is an important forum for us to update on the battery industry in Indonesia. And this industry is a new industry, and I would like to convey you about the investment, the stages we're experiencing, and when we could start production for batteries that could also be used in EV production. So first, I would like to convey the infrastructure of our vision and mission. And this is an initiative of 4 government-owned enterprise. We have Pertamina, IPC, and here we will become an investment holding. We will conduct project development, and we will also invest as well. And from the diagram, we have GV with LG Consortium. So to develop battery industry in Indonesia, we must have an integrated approach from upstream to downstream. So here, our vision and mission here, we are ambitious that we must be a battery company that is world-class. Why? Because, as mentioned by previous speakers, we have a large reserve of nickel. And from downstream, we realize that we have a large market, not just Indonesia, but ASEAN region. Now, if you see here, we could project the demand for a battery. Now, from the study that we're doing from year 2030, we have like a large number of battery demand. And from our domestic market, we have 30 gigawatt. And this is not only for 4-wheel vehicle, but also for other vehicles and energy solution. Now, we are aware that we must also have renewable electricity supply. And it was mentioned earlier that we have a large market in the motor vehicle sector. So our projection here by year 2030, we want to achieve 1.5 million units to 2 million units. And here we have 4 main missions. So first, we want to establish integrated battery production upstream to downstream, from the mining, smelters, sales, and right down to recycling. And here we also would like to create an ecosystem, because we realize if we only produce EV but there's no consumer, then these batteries will end up being exported. And then when we talk about capability, R&D, this is a new sector for Indonesia. That's why we need the support of robust R&D. And our 4th mission, in line with the government regulation, we want to support the national EV, because Indonesia has the potential to become the basis for EV in ASEAN region. And this is important, and we want to make it come true. Now, here, if we see the size of our everyday battery is small size and it's relatively easy to make. But in reality, if we want to set up a battery industry and with the capacity of 140 gigawatt per hour, now we need resources and also time to develop this. And we need an investment of 15.3 billion US dollars. One thing that we must be aware of, that the battery technology we are still using the overseas license. And then from the supply chain side, we will start with the mining first. And Antam and ID will assist us here. And then we will also move to smelting. With Antam and Mine ID will assist here. And then with downstream, we focus on precursors, and where the process will be assisted by Pertamina and PLN. And then another important stage is recycling. Now for recycling, we will recycle all the batteries that we have produced so that we could create a similar robust product. And perhaps you read in the media that for these different stages, we work together with two major players, which is LG Energy Solution and CBL from China, and LG, of course, from South Korea. And we work with two major partners to develop the battery cells industry in Indonesia. Briefly, I could give a description regarding the industry battery sector in Indonesia. I spoke briefly about emission. We want to create an environmental friendly battery. And previously we use ice. And if from ice, we could like produce 240 kilogram. And here, if we use the conventional vehicle, we could produce 1,300 kilogram of CO2. But if we use EV connected to renewable energy, then we will produce no CO2 emission. And then to do this, we need to have proper infrastructure in place. And we have the project development, the feasibility studies, and other financial support. And last time we discussed with the government partners that next year we will set up a factory, 10 gigawatt per hour. Now, this factory is a breakthrough to give us quick solution for battery production in Indonesia. And by year 2024, all components like HKF could be produced by year 2025 in a large scale. This will truly support other government initiatives. One of them is to have or to produce a large number of electric vehicles. And we also would like to expand our position to become a major player of battery producer. Because with the capacity of 140 gigawatt hour, we want to be able to produce battery cells by 20% of the entire demand, the global demand. And here we want to utilize our nickel reserve optimally. Now, these are the data and information. And of course, we need full support from all stakeholders. And here, we need to focus on EV and also support from the government in terms of incentive. That is all from my side. Yes, thank you, Pak Toto Nugroho. Very interesting presentation. So by year 2025 or year 2026, then you could start producing commercially. And hopefully, this industry could support the development of automotive industry in Indonesia. Thank you so much, Pak Toto. Next, I would like to invite the next speaker, Bapak Fankar Usman, Managing Director from BRI Insurance. Pak Fankar is a well-known figure in the banking sector and specifically in insurance sector. He is an executive that is good in managing any insurance aspect. Is that right, sir? So you have 10 minutes for your presentation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz, for today's forum. After listening to the previous speakers, from the keynote speakers and the panelists that had shared with us a lot of information on sustainable automotive industry, I would like to share another perspective today. The previous speakers had talked about developing industry. I'm going to share about sustainable financing. Sustainability financing comes in two types, in financing and in protection. And if we can narrow it down by talking about protection, let's talk about green insurance or green protection for sustainable value. Our point of discussion is to give an insight on why we talk about green insurance, because it's the future, and why this is meaningful for us. We're going to talk about green insurance and what BRI insurance initiatives for these initiatives. We talked about green initiatives because that's our future. We know that if we set our mind to protecting the planet, we can save the planet. There's a new point in financing industry, or ESG risk emergence, which is a model which has been certified by European Union, that environmental, social, and governance are part of sustainable financing. And by that, it means that there will come a time when we're planning investment or financing, banks or investors should show how they care about environmental issues, how they care about social issues, and government. So that's another issue that we need to pay attention to. Renewable natural resources. After I listened to Pak Toto, who talked about batteries and how it can be recycled, and this is part of the solution. When we're talking about the value of sustainability for the future, when we're talking about environmental safe, being environmental friendly, we need to remember that to build this, there is the mining industry involved, battery industry involved, and we know that battery contributes to biohazard. But with recycling of these batteries, this is part of the circular economy that will ensure that we will have a green future. And this is the sustainable value that we can work toward together. And why is green industry important? Why does it matter? As the previous speakers had talked about, there are a lot of values in that. But there is also the issue of cost efficiency. In building something, there is a huge cost in building anything. But if we talked about this together, we can affect more cost efficiency. And we can also disseminate the idea of green mindset to the public. BRI Insurance, as part of the BRI group, as the parent company, BRI itself has implemented initiatives, ESG initiatives, including capacity building, plastic reduction campaigns, also cooperation with environmental friendly merchants, and green sector policy and community empowerment. BRI Insurance, as the subsidiary, had formulated this into the triple bottom line, or 3P policy. When we're talking about bottom line, we talked about profit, but in this case, the kind of bottom line that we want to see is not only profit, but also people, how to empower people, how to save our planning, how to make sure that our stakeholders are prosperous. Not only the company is profiting out of this, but also all the other stakeholders. Green insurance for automotive industry has been discussed by other speakers before, but I want to emphasize that this is created by the government. There is a very big potentials, which to the amount of about 67 trillion rupiah. And this constitutes an opportunity. In BRINS, we have several products that are sustainable. In terms of business process, we have from the application to claim, when we apply for insurance, for example, there is a paperless policy, and then we have a paperless policy for claiming insurance. Our products include pay as you drive. We have a product that in which the driver pays for insurance as they drive. So if they don't drive, then they don't have to pay for the insurance. This will reduce the amount of driving done by the people. Then there is incentive for eco-friendly vehicle. As already been talked about, eco-friendly vehicle, we have about 1,000 vehicles, eco-friendly vehicles in Indonesia. And to support this industry, to support sustainable industry, we also provide incentives for eco-friendly vehicles. For example, we provide a lower premium or discounted premium to a certain limit, and we also offer extension of coverage. For example, when you are insuring an eco-friendly vehicle, you get an extra point as incentive. For example, for personal accident. And then green for old. Greens also offer a model to exchange or to replace vehicles. Total loss is when a car is exposed to risks and to the loss of about 75%. And at this point, the car is replaced with another. The current policy is green for old. We exchange a car to replace the damaged car with a new one. with the same brand. But with and by taking into account the sustainability element of this car, and if the risk is higher, then we can exchange it with another car that is sustainable. And we can offer them, do you want to be your car to be replaced with an eco-friendly vehicle? It will all depend on the owner of the vehicle, whether they want their car be replaced with an eco-friendly one or not. In developing green insurance to support the sustainable industry, we encounter a number of challenges. These challenges are in its implementation. The first challenge is that our public is not that aware of sustainability industry. And then infrastructure. Even though we are still developing this infrastructure, it is not adequate yet to support these sustainable vehicles. It's not massive enough. There are a lot of obstacles, even though the government had provided a lot of tax incentives. But we need more standardized policies. Now, to answer to these challenges, we need more supportive policies that promotes sustainability. Then through financial institutions, we need more sustainable financing. If they support sustainable industry, then the industry should get incentives as well. For example, lower credit for eco-friendly cars, for example, in financing cars. There should also be collaboration between stakeholders from the battery manufacturers, the charging stations as well. And lastly, the insurance industry itself, without protection, you cannot develop a sustainable automotive industry. As it continues to develop, problems will occur without insurance protection. So in this opportunity, I want to emphasize that there should be more collaboration with the sustainable industry. And with achieving sustainable industry goals, we can achieve the goals of our long-term development. In conclusion, we can say that green is the future, and green insurance is necessary, is essential to sustain sustainable development. And lastly, I would like to say that to support sustainable economy, we need to switch grid into green in our mindset so that we can achieve sustainable future. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Rufankar Umran, CEO of BRI Insurance. I think it's pretty clear. We asked about why BRI Insurance has shown enthusiasm in BEV. You said that the main reason is ESG because BRI is one of the companies that is very concerned with ESG because it's part of our parent company policies. BRI has implemented the ESG based policies, and we have to align BRI Insurance with this policy. We also want this world to be greener so that our economy will be healthier, more efficient, and more sustainable. I think that's the idea. Thank you so much, Mr. Imran. Thank you, participants of Investor Daily Summits. We are now going to go into the next phase, which is the question and answer. We have received a lot of questions from the participants, for the panelists, and they come from various regions in the country. The first question is for Pak Toto. Alexander Hilarius Watt asked the following question. Is it possible for Indonesia to manufacture Indonesian brand electric vehicle battery? Other investors wanted to invest on mega power bank to support electric vehicles in Indonesia. What do you think about that? For this question, we need to be aware of the current situation. All technologies related to manufacture, from mining to precursors and cathodes, all this technology is dominated by CATL and LG. We need to initially partner with them, but along the way, we need to develop cooperation with other research and development institutions in Indonesia, which I see that they have the potentials to develop the technology for this. At some point in the future, we Indonesians have to be able to use the research and development potentials in Indonesia so that we can develop our own made in Indonesia battery. Is it easy to achieve? Of course not, but if we can all commit to it, I'm sure Indonesia have the capacity to do it, because in terms of chemical technology, manufacturing, if we can seriously commit to it, I'm sure that we can develop the technology necessary for it. When in terms of power banks, Indonesia, we need them to energy storage system to store energy for, because Indonesia has intermittent renewable power. PLN needs the national power company needs it for example, solar power energy, and this ISS is necessary for that. Indonesia has a big potentials about that to use these ISS, but for BEV, for exports and domestic use, I think there is a bigger need for that, or bigger demand for that. I think we need to pursue both line or both alternatives. So not everyone will use ISS, but there should be a balance between catering to BEV and ISS. So I think that's the general picture of it. Thank you, Pak Toto. The next question is for Pak Muldoko. Is there any member of Periklindo that has developed its own EV? Because you said that Periklindo is prepared to develop EV industry in Indonesia. Pak Muldoko is unfortunately not with us anymore because he has to attend to the president at the moment. But let's move on to Pak Lee. Will Hyundai or other manufacturers manufacture EV in Indonesia with features like Tesla with autopilot feature? With regards to the question with the association, Hyundai hasn't joined the Periklindo, but as a member of Gaikindo, we follow the guidelines of Gaikindo. But if there is any development for EV and separate association, Hyundai, of course, will join them. As to my knowledge, some companies from China are considering starting
investment EV on EV. And that's all I can say at the moment. The next question for Mr. Johannes Nangoy. You get a lot of questions. One of them is in terms of preparation of after-sales service of EVs. Are these facilities distributed evenly, not only in big cities, but also in smaller cities, especially if we think about Indonesians who move or who travel to their hometown for holidays? But can you respond to this? Mr. Johannes is muted, so I cannot listen to what he's saying. Mr. Johannes, oh, your microphone is muted. Could you turn it on? Okay, apologies. Can you hear me now? Right. But I would like to emphasize that Gaikindo is an association of automotive industry in Indonesia. It was established 50 years ago in Indonesia. So from around the 70s, we have established it around the 70s. We have a lot of experts in automotive industry who is instrumental in developing automotive industry in Indonesia. Indonesian automotive Indonesia includes internal combustion cars, diesel cars, and manual cars, and hybrid cars, plug-in hybrids, and EV, of course. So we accommodate all of them. Our purpose is simple: to make Indonesia a country that is independent, or a country that can provide its own vehicles. From out of 1.1 million cars in Indonesia that is used into 2019, we provide, or we produced, a lot of it, and to achieve independence and in provision of if 20 years from now, the map of automotive is changing from combustion engines to more EV-dominated cars, is it plug-in, whether hybrid or plug-in, we want Indonesia to remain a basis of production and export. But to answer that question, whether there is maintenance units. First of all, EVs are more low maintenance than internal combustion engines. But in terms of EVs that are sold in Indonesia, there is still a few number of it. There are still very few. So I don't think it is necessary to provide maintenance stations across Indonesia. There are only several of them in Indonesia. In 2019, there is 0 EV being sold in Indonesia. In 2020, about 300, and in 2021, about 500 units sold. So there are only about 700 and 800 electric vehicles in Indonesia. So there is still very little need for it.
Do you have plans for EV to collaborate with banking sector, including insurance company, to support the EV industry in Indonesia? interesting question. So if we want to support environmentally friendly industry, to support sustainable value, then of course we need to collaborate with many stakeholders. I mentioned this earlier, how we need to collaborate with the industry sector, with the government. And when we talk about financing, it's the same. We need to see the prospect. If there is a clear and huge prospect, then eventually the banking or the investors will come to the industry. So the industry does not have to knock on the doors of the banking sector. So we will come to them asking how can we collaborate further. And green insurance or BRINs, when we see that there are a large potential in the industry, then we could cooperate so that we could prosper together and we could achieve the sustainable value that we're aiming for. I would like to invite closing statement from speakers. First, Mr. Lee Kang-hyun. Yes. First, thank you so much for the invitation given to me to become one of the panelists. And here we see the future for the automotive industry in Indonesia. And we support the government, and how we could work together. And it is important for us to continue this collaboration so that the development of EV and ICE vehicle could continue in Indonesia. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pak Lee. And now I proceed with Pak Johannes Nangoy. Yes, I would like to convey a statement. Happy 20th anniversary to Investor Daily. I applaud you for the positive messages conveyed to the Indonesian people. So all the best to Investor Daily. And also thank you for choosing one of the topics which I think is valuable to encourage environmentally friendly automotive industry in Indonesia. And here I'm confirmed that the government strategies and policies are aligned. And here there's a global trend that they will use more environmentally friendly vehicle. So this topic is an outstanding one, and I have no doubt that Indonesia will become one of the designated country for investments. Thank you so much. I invite Pak Toto Nugroho. Yes, thank you, Pak Ajis. So here, every day, my left hand will hold my coffee cup, and then my right hand will hold my Investor Daily. So that's the morning routine for me. So Investor Daily is a good source of information. And again, I would like to reiterate that Indonesia has a large potential in automotive industry. And in the battery industry, we could become one of the major players. And not only that, we also want to make Indonesia as one of the robust EV battery producers, so that from the economic side, we gain positive impact. And from the environmental side, we could still sustain and preserve the environment, and we could create zero footprint of CO2 emission. That is all. Thank you. I would like to invite Pak Fankar Umran. Yes. As a closing statement, I would like to support this industry, and not only environmentally friendly for automotive industry, but overall. And here we also need to invite the public, encourage them to have a green mindset as well. We must constantly think about the future of our planet and environment. And when we talk about industry, it's not only about how to make the industry greener, but how to make ourselves greener. So if we have this as our personal mindset, then we could move to make the industry have this green mindset as well. So we start from ourselves first, and to have that sustainability value. And then next, we must produce a green product. So in order to do this, we need to collaborate with various stakeholders, with the industry, with the banking sector, but also partnering with the public so that we could make it happen. I guess that is all. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session. We have received enormous insights from our speakers. We have Mr. Lee Kang-hyun, Pak Yohanes Nangoy, and we have Pak Fankar Umran and Pak Toto Nugroho. So hopefully your valuable insights could be beneficial to all of us. And once again, we are certain that Indonesia could be one of the major players of EV producer. And to make it happen, the government needs to be more aggressive in conveying incentive, whether fiscal, non-fiscal, including the license and the permits. And Indonesia will not stop at producing electric vehicle only, but we're aiming to do far more than that. As mentioned by Pak Yohanes Nangoy, we will also produce hybrid, ICE, and other types of vehicle. And here, I'm certain that we could create a more robust and environmentally friendly automotive industry. And of course, with this, we could provide more job opportunities, alleviate poverty, and give a better future for our children. So I would like to thank all of my panelists. Hopefully, we could see each other very soon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you, before we close this session, that after this, there are many more outstanding speakers. For example, we will have Bapak Arifin Tasrif, Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, with panelists consist of Bapak Zulkifli Zaini, Managing Director of PLN, Ibu Nika Widiawati, Managing Director of Pertamina, Bapak Suryo Eko Hadianto, the Managing Director of Bukit Asam, and Bapak Hilmi Panigoro, Managing Director of Medco Energy International. So do stay with us. All the best to you all. And this event is organized by Herba Muno, by Mustika Ratu, Bank Negara Indonesia, BNI, Citibank Indonesia, Ajaib, and Lintas Arta. I'm Abdul Aziz, signing off. And all the best to you all and stay healthy. Thank you, Pak Abdul Aziz. Take care.